Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
And we are back. Hey everyone, welcome to. Okay, I'm just going to restart this. Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Doom Patrol, episode 13. So, last time we had butts. A lot of butts. And a lot of sadness. But also butts. And we had Vic trapped in the ant farm, and the rest of our crew, joined by Silas, having to infiltrate to save him. And we might have had Flex Mentallo. I'm not 100% on that still, but it might have been. It just seems like that guy was too important in the way he was presented to just be no one and to not go anywhere, you know? Especially with the fact that he could seemingly read Cyborg's mind. So there's got to be more to it. Right? I'm not crazy, right? I don't know. But yeah, this is getting interesting, and there's only 3 more episodes. This episode and then 2 more after this, which we'll get to both of those other 2 next week. That way we can start July with our next series in this slot. So yeah, which if you're on Discord, you might already know what it is. But yeah, definitely gonna be sad to finish out this season, but excited to see how it ends nonetheless. So we've got this episode first, though, episode 13, and then we'll do 14 and 15 next week. So yeah, I assume now that they've kind of caused mayhem at the ant farm, they're going to return and everything. And it's also unclear if Silas is alive or dead, because Vic beat the shit out of him. Granted, it's not Vic's fault, not at all. He was being manipulated, because that's what this bad guy does. But it's unclear if he's actually dead or not. It kind of seemed like he was. It very much seemed like he was. And I hope he's not, because that would be really dark. And I'm not saying that this show couldn't go really dark. I'm just saying I don't want that to be the case. But yeah, we had some pretty interesting stuff. And considering we are getting close to the end of the season, I assume we're going to have something big happen going forward. We've got to have some kind of like really big, like, close to this season. Some climax that really sets itself apart. Unless that ends up being the joke and the ending is actually very mundane. That would actually be kind of funny. But there's not really much else for me to say regarding this, so we're just going to get into it. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, while we got some closure for Larry before, this episode had a lot of closure for Rita. And we did a lot more too. So I was correct in my guess that was Flex Mentallo. But he didn't realize he was Flex Mentallo. He had been tortured and manipulated by the ant farm and everything for so many years that he kind of forgot who he was. And he only agreed to go under all of that because they also had his wife Dolly, who we find out was Dolores. But everyone escapes the ant farm and then splits up. Vic is sent with his father to the hospital, with Rita following after, thanks to Jane. And while there, Rita ends up meeting this old man who she tells her life story to. Through this, as well as through talking to Vic, she becomes emboldened, and by the end is able to face the dangers of the enemy, Mr. Nobody, without any more fear. Well, she's probably still afraid, but it's not crippling her anymore. Meanwhile, Larry is not doing too well without the negative spirit in him. He's dying, which makes sense. I mean, the negative spirit is what was keeping him alive all these years. So without it inside of him, he is dying. The spirit puts him to sleep and shows him memories of the past when he had interactions, well, he and the negative spirit had interactions with Flex Mentallo back when they were both in the ant farm. And so we got to see through that all of what happened to Flex, as well as a bit of what happened to Larry. Meanwhile, we have Cliff and Jane having to deal with Flex and trying to jog his memory. They start by trying to mess with him with the soap opera and everything, but eventually have to end up bringing in his wife to jog his memory. And it works, but unfortunately, the ant farm placed something in her that if she ever tried to find him, she would be just molecularly disintegrated. And so she very horrifically died in her husband's arms, but having gotten to see him one more time after so long, after like 50 plus years. And I won't lie, that part got me really fucking depressed. Like shit, that bothered me. Because I'll be honest, like when we saw the flashbacks, saw what happened when Flex was first taken and everything, and we saw him with Dolly, it was really fucking cute. Like it was just a really fucking cute relationship. Um, and then when we saw how he reacted to Dolly being taken by them, and how he just gave up at that point, it's like it already made me sad. So when they brought her back and they reunited, I was ecstatic. I was happy. I was overjoyed for them. And then she died, and it really fucked me up. I was crying, and I'm getting teary eyed even thinking about it again. Uh because I, I'm I'm a sucker for love. Seeing characters in love in anything, in any kind of story or game or movie or whatnot. It's just I love that kind of shit. I love love. And so seeing such a horrific end to that love, it anytime that happens, it really bothers me. And going back to Rita's part with the old man, I was convinced while she was telling the story that the old man was going to be like the baby of that other actress that committed suicide. Because the way he looked at her during certain parts of that story, the way he reacted, very much made it seem like that was going to be the twist. But no, it was Mr. Nobody instead, and it's like, oh, okay, why not? Um, I'm actually a little disappointed by that. I mean, I like Mr. Nobody as a villain and everything, but I kind of wish it would have been the kid. I think that would have been such a big cathartic moment for Rita, and would have just added to the closure for her. Oh well. um, but yeah, so now at the end of this, everyone is back to being, well, not back to being, but finally ready to fight. They're finally ready to actually take on Mr. Nobody. And he's ready for them. Merchandising and all. That was funny. Um, but yeah, so we're finally gonna get into the big confrontation with these next two episodes. And I think it's good that I have it organized to where I'm gonna react to those next two at the same time. It's definitely gonna, I feel, be a two-part finale here. The question is, are we actually going to rescue the chief, or is that not actually going to happen this season? We'll have to see. And I hope we get more of an actual description of Flex Mentallo's powers, because right now it just seems like he flexes his muscles and can basically do anything with that. Like it seems very OP. But I mean, I hope we get more of an actual like description of it, to where it's like we get more of the details on how it works and if there's any limits or whatnot. Um, we'll see where it goes. We will see where it goes. But it looks like Vic is going to be out of play here, because he's choosing to stay with his father. But he did help. He did help. He did reintegrate with his systems to give Rita the help that they needed. So there is that. So now we'll just have to see kind of how it goes. I like how we've gotten all of our main group here getting kind of like either closure or having like a big moment of like clarity with their issues. Something that just really helps push that forward for them. Cliff got to not only see his daughter for the first time in decades, but got to help her out. We had Jane having to deal with all of her issues in the underground thanks to help from Cliff. Of course, we had Larry meeting up with John and finally getting to have a real goodbye. And now Rita just dealing with her past by talking about it and just letting it out. Vic is the only one who hasn't had any kind of closure yet. But I think that might come next episode. With his father in the hospital and stable, they might get to have a conversation here and might truly get to just really talk. Like, not argue, not fight, but just talk. And that might be the closure that we get for Vic, because his issues definitely stem around his parents. The death of his mother and his father just not being the best father to him. So that's my guess as to what's going to happen based on what we've got so far. Because again, the closure thing seems to be a big deal for all of these characters. And if we do get that closure with Vic, he might end up heading out to help the rest of the gang, after all. Because it is only after that closure that all of our patrol have accepted going to fight Mr. Nobody. It's because of that closure that they're ready now. So I really hope that is what they do with Vic. Because he deserves it just as much as any of them. And just because we got some closure doesn't mean it's even over for any of them. It's not just Jane who's going to keep dealing with these issues. Cliff, while he kind of got to see his daughter, he didn't actually reunite with her. Larry still has to deal with the issues related to the negative spirit and his own mortality in a way. And so on and so forth. One victory doesn't solve everything. And I know I keep talking about it, but the last thing I want to bring up is that this series has continued to impress me at how it tackles these serious subjects, because these are very serious subjects. And there's a lot of it that can be relatable to so many, myself included. Having had a friend who committed suicide when I was young. Even though I never really felt it was my fault like Rita did, it still hurt me very heavily for a long time. I even used I even used his name like as a tribute for logins on various websites for a long time because I didn't want to let him go because I missed him. And so it's like, these are all issues that people can connect to. These are real issues. And yeah, they're displayed in a fantastical superhero kind of way, but they're real problems. And they're handled so delicately and so well that it's hard to believe that I was told that this show was a comedy. It's not. There's comedy in it. There's a lot of comedy in it. But this show is a drama. 100%. This show is an emotional drama with a lot of focus on mental health. And I wasn't prepared at all. But I'm so glad that I've gotten to check it out. Because just like a lot of things I've checked out through donation rewards on this channel, this is something I probably never would have on my own time. So I'm really happy that this was a donation reward. But yeah, we have 2 episodes left. We'll get to those both next week, finish off the season, and then we'll take a much needed break. Because even if I did react to shows multiple seasons in a row, I wouldn't for this show because I need a break from this show. It's so heavy. It's so heavy. I need a break. So we'll do the final 2 episodes next week, take a break, get to another donation reward in the meantime, and we'll come back to this as soon as we can. But in the meantime, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of Doom Patrol, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.